Welcome to the CHOW Podcast, hosted by Animal Friends of Wyoming County, where our mission is to help care for animals held by the Wyoming County Animal Shelter and promote responsible pet care in Wyoming County. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the CHOW Podcast. This is our fourth episode of our first season. My name is Sam Goodell. I am the president of Animal Friends of Wyoming County and your host for today. We are going to be diving into the topic of Lyme disease. So I hope you take something from this and apply it to your everyday life when it comes to your companion animals. Before we introduce our guest for today that's going to be discussing this in depth, I'd like to introduce our my co-host here. His name is Tom Purcell. He's one of our board members for Animal Friends of Wyoming County. So, hey, Tom, how's it going today?
Good. Really glad to be here. It's about time I got invited. I'm just kidding. It's our fourth episode of CHOW, and it's really going along pretty good, these episodes. So, yeah, glad to be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background, Tom?
Well, I'm a retired police officer. My last partner was a Doberman Pinscher, and since then I got bored, so I went to Penn Foster School to learn how to be a dog trainer and learn a couple things about animal behavior. Then about 15 years ago, I stumbled into the Wyoming County Animal Shelter and met Jessica Goodell, and she didn't hesitate to put me to work here, and I just haven't been able to leave ever since, you know. Mm-hmm. So subsequently became one of the board members of Animal Friends of Wyoming County, which is one amazing outfit. I can't believe it to this day, the money that it raises and the good that it does. We have a Pets for Vets program that's if you're a vet and you want a little assistance because you really want a pet and you want a dog and you might not think you can afford it, we're here to help you. We've been taking care of the strays that come in and doing wonderful things for that program, and it's a great organization. I'm glad to be part of it. I have 3 dogs myself, which makes me a super hypocrite because I always preach one dog is dog math. One dog is one dog's worth of work, and 2 dogs is 3 dogs worth of work, and 3 dogs is crazy. What's wrong with you? But anyway, I had this right-wing conspiracy going on here at the Wyoming County Shelter that just stuck me with this puppy named, what's your name, Jack? Jack is sitting here with me, and he's just such a good puppy. Out of the 3, I think my puppy's the best behaved dog. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad we're getting into this subject of ticks because this is a crazy tick season. Mm-hmm. All my dogs are being treated, but they still keep picking ticks up, and I'm watching the ticks fall off them stone dead. It's really a joy to see. I even have a barn cat. The poor thing, I'm picking ticks off him all the time. So this is a great warning, folks, that it's a bad season for ticks. You got to be monitoring your pets every day. So what else we got going on the program here today?
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on board and joining me in this endeavor. This is a great project we're doing with Animal Friends for the CHOW podcast. The CHOW is an acronym for those who are tuning in for the first time. That means Canine Health, Ownership, and Wellness. It's supposed to help promote education in our community about animal diseases or animal laws and animal welfare and how we are supposed to treat our companion animals because they are a blessing to us. So we need to treat them as such. So this is quite exciting. And this topic in particular is really something that everyone should be paying attention to because we are recording this right now in May of 2023. And the weather is upon us where the snow is supposed to be completely gone. I don't want to speak too loud on that. So, but, it's supposed to be turning into spring, turning into summer. Everyone's getting ready. People are graduating. Summer vacations are about to go on. But what else is lingering about in your own backyard are these nasty little parasites called ticks. And before we're going to get into that topic, though, I'd like to introduce our special guest that we have here today. I have the privilege of calling her one of my coworkers and a dear friend of mine. This is Dr. Kendra Sims of the Perry Veterinary Clinic.
Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. You'll hear my little gremlin. I have my little 12-week-old baby with us today. But yeah, so I'm Dr. Kendra Sims, and I have been working with Sam for 7 years now.
Yeah.
7 years yesterday.
Yes, happy anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I actually think that the ticks are a little bit closer to home, probably more than people out here. But from Massachusetts, I went to undergrad out there, and then I went to vet school at the Ontario Veterinary College up in Guelph, Canada. And then that's kind of how I entered this area, was through some cattle work, and here I am practicing small animal medicine. So I love it a lot. We have a wonderful family. My husband and I have 2 little boys, and we fell to the shelter. They're cute dogs. So we have Winnie, a golden retriever. She's about almost 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
We adopted her 2 Christmases ago. And then I also have a cat. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah, but Lyme disease is definitely important, tick preventive and all. So I'm really excited to be talking about it today.
Awesome. I take it Lyme disease and prevention of ticks and Lyme disease is one of your passions. That's why the topic is the main topic of today.
Yeah, we actually have a dear family member that was affected by Lyme disease. So, yeah, it's because it can affect people too.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of, and I talk about it every day with people. So,
yeah.
Yep.
You know, there was a day I was pheasant hunting a couple years ago, and I got a little tired, so I sat down on the ground, maybe 10 minutes. That night I look and there's ticks all along my belt line, all embedded into my skin and already swelling up from sucking the blood. It just made me disgusted.
Yeah.
So I started to feel a little weird a couple of days later, and my doctor was afraid I was picking up the Lyme disease thing, so he put me on antibiotics right away, and I was kind of glad I didn't suffer from all the symptoms I understand can get pretty nasty as far as Lyme disease. But I survived that one. But I'm super hyper conscious about ticks now. I mean, I check myself all the time, and I check my animals all the time.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
90% of people who are bit by a tick or who are infected by Lyme show clinical signs. So it's a lot larger percent than dogs. Dogs are only like 5 to 10%, but yeah, you hear a lot of people get that bullseye ring, which black flies cause that on dogs. So we get a lot of phone calls this time of year.
Yeah.
I think they have Lyme disease, and it's just a black fly. But yeah, people, that classic bullseye ring, fever, they just don't feel well, like flu symptoms. But you can get heart disease, neurologic disease. Yeah. My grandmother's paralyzed from the waist up.
Oh my.
Yeah, for like a couple months because they didn't know what it was. And they finally found the spot on her back. And she doesn't even go outside that much. She doesn't even
crazy.
It's certainly nothing to take lightly. We don't think about it. We're in our backyards every day, or we're walking in the woods, so we just don't think about it. We need to think about it.
Yeah. Just this is perfect time of year where people are getting into their gardens. They're trying to do some landscaping. They're mowing their lawns where the grass is really high, and this is prime time for them to start coming out of the woodwork too, and be a little bit more out there. Even though we know they're out there all year round. My mom in the past week and a half has pulled 2 ticks off her, and she hasn't felt too well from the past week. So it's just like, my gosh, and she's just gardening, like normal, everyday stuff. So just be mindful of where you're going and what you're doing.
For you country folk who have barn cats, you wouldn't think, just don't think of your barn cat. They're kind of independent and on their own. But I have a barn cat who decided to be my friend recently, and I've been literally picking ticks off him every day. And they're ticks that are already swelled and already been taking his blood. So I just finally put him on a flea medicine, and let's hope it helps.
Yeah.
Speaking of the subject, I did want to bring up, I do other podcasts that are a little political, so I can't resist. But did you know, Sam, the definition of politics?
No, I don't. What is
It's
that?
poly is in many, and ticks as in blood-sucking parasites.
Yes, amen to that. Yes. Also, so, man, Lyme disease, ticks. Where do we even begin with the subject?
Yeah, we used to think fleas were the big problem. But
Yeah.
ticks have really grown in
Fleas don't make me feel gross. Ticks do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think, kind of, I guess, blending into your barn cat, a lot of people are under the impression that if they have a cat, even if it's indoor, they don't need flea and tick preventive. And that's very wrong, because your dog or yourself can carry the ticks in. And if that tick gets a blood meal that doesn't kill them, they can continue to spread around your house. And that's where I think, we are encouraging people more and more to be on year-round flea and tick preventive. And I'll touch base on why year-round in a little bit, but it's also important to have your cats on flea and tick preventive, because if that, they don't get disease like dogs do, but they can be a school bus for them. So your kids and you, and
Yeah.
you don't want that.
Yeah, we just don't think about our barn
No.
cats as somebody we have to take care of. They are.
Yeah. Yep. Even indoor cats, you think just lay around all day and sleep,
Yeah.
because they don't go. A lot of people think they don't go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we bring them in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very big common misconception. That
Yes.
just because, it's an indoor cat, so I don't need to do this or I don't need to do that. And be like, no, because you're still walking in and out of the house.
Yep.
That cat can get out of the house. Something can get in the house. You want to be safe and protective at all times.
Yeah.
And so, it's just wise decision making to
The majority of people don't even know what a tick looks like. And it wouldn't hurt you to Google it and get a little look, because those deer ticks are just little guys, But once they start sucking that blood out, they really balloon into a huge, disgusting insect. If you haven't had your pleasure of removing one, I'm going to give you a heads up. It's going to gross you out.
Sometimes it can be rewarding picking them up.
yeah, it
They
can
are
be,
disgusting.
but it's something. No matter how big the tick is, the damage that little tick can do on your pet's skin, it lasts sometimes for weeks. I had a little Shih Tzu that I adopted at the shelter here. At one point, she's since then passed on, but she had a tick in the middle of her forehead. And she was blonde in color, and so I didn't really notice it too well until it started growing more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, after we removed it, that spot was there for weeks before it healed up. And I'm like, my gosh, such a little parasite.
Part of the problem, and it's not a misconception, it's something to be concerned about, is we got to be careful how we remove these ticks, because we leave the heads behind a lot of times when we pop that animal off, or that disgusting insect off, and the head's embedded in the skin. That's not going to disappear for quite a while,
Yeah,
And
the head doesn't cause. A lot of people worry that the head being in there will keep the Lyme disease present or disease. It doesn't, but it does cause a foreign body reaction, and they get inflammation and maybe a small infection like a pimple, and we do see some irritation there. So, you can always sometimes a lot of people think putting alcohol on the tick will help, but that actually causes the tick to bury in further because it's going away from the alcohol. So, trying to pulling the body, and then sometimes hydrogen peroxide will help bubble it out. But yeah, putting alcohol on the tick can cause it to move in the body further.
Now there's an old wives' tale that says take something hot, a hot needle or a hot
Oh yeah.
a hot match or something like that. One is dangerous; it's going to burn you,
really tough.
and two is will that make the tick embedded even deeper as
I'm
well?
not sure. I'd be more concerned about the damage to the pet
Yeah,
We don't want
causing
to.
a burn.
We don't want to set Fluffy on fire
Yeah.
while trying to save his life.
We
so.
don't want to do this with a lip match. Let me clarify here. It's just something that was hot, was hoping that it would back the insect out.
Honestly, the tick tornadoes that are out there, there's usually every vet clinic, Walmart, they have them.
That's
They're
great.
these little things you wedge, and they almost look like the back of a hammer. And you wedge it under like a nail, and you just twist and pick it right out so that it can kind of pop them right off.
Yeah,
It's
they're
perfect.
usually green, and they
Yep.
look like a little nail puller, and then you just hook it onto that.
It's one of the best things man ever created.
I don't think
tell
they're
you.
probably more than like $3.
Yeah, they're
They should be
very,
pretty cheap.
especially in the long run, to get
Yeah.
that ticks removed and your peace of mind, you have everything removed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a nifty little tool.
Because, you should try to get the tick off as soon as you see it, because you need a minimum of 48 hours is what that tick needs to transfer disease. 48 hours
Oh,
to get the bacteria, that organism, from their belly into the bloodstream of an animal.
and that's great information about trying to treat the tick and having the tick embed itself deeper, because I never heard that
Yeah.
before. That's really great.
It doesn't make sense because it wants to get away from the heat, but it doesn't want to get off the
Or the
pet.
alcohol, right?
So it just goes in.
Right.
Yeah.
No more
Nasty
alcohol.
little things.
Yeah. No more rubbing alcohol.
We don't want a drunken tick anyway.
So, ticks. Well, how many different types of ticks are out there?
There's a handful of them. But the ones we worry about are the deer ticks. The Ixodes scapularis is the one that causes Lyme disease. Causes other diseases as well, but that's the most popular. The black-legged tick is another name for it. So the life cycle, I guess, is important to talk about because they differ in size, but and like Tom said, they will always cause disease. So you have your female, your female tick that lays a bunch of eggs. They can lay up to like 2,000 eggs at a time, I think,
Smokes.
2,000 or 5,000. And then those eggs hatch into larvae. Well, the larvae then go on to the white-footed mouse. And if the white-footed mouse has Lyme disease, that's where they pick it up. Then they jump off the mouse and they molt into what's called a nymph. And the nymph can then either go back onto another mouse or a human or a dog. So if the nymph has Lyme disease from its first meal before it grew, it can infect, or it can still pick up Lyme disease on its next feed as a nymph. And then it jumps off, and then it molts into an adult tick. And usually adult ticks go for the deer, adult, or a dog. And that's where they can, once again, pick up or infect. And then they breed on the host that they're feeding, jump off, lay eggs, and repeat. So the only stage that they can't infect anything is when they're a larva. But to know the different, those sizes, it doesn't really matter. You just get the tick off.
Yeah.
But so that's why preventative is so important, because you're not gonna know what stage it is. And a lot of times we're not seeing the ticks until it's too late. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you're not going to feel the tick if
Walking
it's somewhere
around,
that
yeah.
you don't see it. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to cause pain. You're going to wind up noticing it in the shower or something when you wonder what's that
Yeah.
bump that's coming off here. What is a human tag or something?
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be that.
I think it's a skin
disgusting
tag
little
or a mole
insect.
or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
generally how they're discovered.
So Lyme disease itself, does it originate from the tick, or does the tick just pass it on?
No, the tick is the carrier. So I call it the infector, which is called the vector. So it's a vector-borne disease. So it doesn't come from the tick. The tick is the vehicle. So I always say the tick is a school bus, right? They pick the kids up from somewhere. The school bus brings them to school and drops them off, and that's where they, have the majority of their impact. So that is the tick. You need the tick. You could. A lot of people worry if their dog has Lyme disease, can they get it from their dog? No, you truly have to get it from a tick. So the tick carries it in their abdomen. The bacteria live in the abdomen of the tick, and can overwinter. So, and then when the snow, it doesn't die. So, like heartworm, right, is transferred by mosquitoes. And in the winter, the heartworm disease is killed in the belly of the mosquito. But in ticks, that doesn't happen. It stays.
You know, I got a question. Kendra, as a young person, I don't remember this explosion of ticks. Is this just something that's been an evolution deal that now it's a crazy thing where
So it started, I think it became relevant in like the 1980s in Lyme, Connecticut. That's where this name of the disease came from, is a town in Connecticut where it kind of like blew up there. I don't know why exactly. There's probably some kind of reasoning, but I think one is that we're seeing a lot more people own dogs, and a lot more people own dogs inside. So when my parents were kids, their dogs were outside on a run. They weren't inside with them. You know, they didn't bring them to the vet unless they were sick. And I think that's probably the case why, you know, dogs live longer these days, right? We just take better care of them. But everyone owns dogs now. And we're also seeing a lot of dogs come up from down south in warmer areas where, you know, or these, I don't call them wild dogs, but, you know, homeless dogs that are wandering aren't on any preventatives, and they come up here. And not everyone puts their dogs on preventatives. So then it just continues to spread. In some areas, there's overpopulation of deer. New Jersey, for example, they're just rampant. I don't really want to get into the whole temperature change thing, but in Canada, where I went to vet school, they didn't really talk about like heartworm and Lyme disease as much and tick disease because it wasn't as popular. But it's getting warmer, and people are bringing dogs from down south up there. So we're seeing that change as well. I also think there's a huge movement for natural products, you know, which doesn't work. So Kate's going to have some things to say.
so it's just not our imagination. There really has been a population explosion of ticks.
Yes. Yeah.
So it makes us need to be more aware. We have a problem, but we got to take care of it.
Yeah. And, you know, now there's multiple preventative products out there, topicals, orals, collars. And there's a lot of misconception around there. A lot of people think that they're not going to ever see a tick on their animal. Well, the preventatives, the tick has to bite the animal, and then it sucks in blood, and that's when they're affected. So they all cause the tick to detach. It's like a foul smell, like a foul taste. Can we pause it? Sorry. He's going to cry. Okay. So on the topic of like prevention and things like that, there's, you know, the oral products, the topicals, and the collars. I think they all have their pros and cons, but a lot of people think that you are going to not see a tick on your animal, but that's not the case. So some preventatives cause the tick, well, they all cause the tick to detach, and some cause the tick to die. But the tick has to bite your animal in order to get it, which is safe. That they suck in first, get that blood, and then detach or die. So, you know, that's the most important thing, is getting them to initially take that feed in, that first couple, you know, feeding minutes, and then that blood is like poison in them.
Okay, so the concept isn't just for the blood to taste bad, but it's really the intent is to kill the tick.
Yes,
correct?
yeah, a lot of them now kill the ticks. So, like, I can speak to Simparica Trio, Perfecto. They all kill the ticks.
Yeah, it's actually a good point to bring up, because if I don't know what everyone uses for their flea and tick prevention, or even if you don't use it, you definitely should. That's the big thing you want to take away from this podcast episode, is be on flea and tick prevention. Do what you can to prevent diseases like this to come on, and ticks and things like that. But some of the products on the market, such as Avantix, it's very popular out there. It says on the packaging it repels them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, if you see a tick on it, the product is not working. It just means that because it's a topical, it might have an odor that the ticks don't like, but that doesn't really mean that it's not effective, you know?
Yeah. And I think, too, the topicals, I find the topicals are harder. So, you have to really make sure you're getting on the skin. You have to not have bathed your pet for 2 days before, 2 days after. There's a lot of, risk to yourself or people in the household touching the product, getting all the product on. So it's just, but they're still all have their place. But it is, I think preventative is the number one. There are vaccines out available, but it's not just Lyme disease. The vaccines are only for Lyme disease. It's not for the other tick-borne disease as well. So.
Are there some parts of the animal that the tick gravitates to that we should keep our eyes mostly on focused?
Yeah, so ear, around the head and neck area, ears, mouth, they can go inside the mouth, armpits, tail-based, but anywhere, really. So.
Yeah, definitely checking when you're checking your pet over. It's easy, like, say, for instance, you have a black and white pet, and it's easy to spot a tick on the white fur because sometimes it'll stick right out, or you can see it, or when you're feeling it around. But even check the darker fur too, because they could be just hiding anywhere.
Yep. Yeah. They're really, and like I said, they're hard to find when they're so small, but that's usually when we find them on, we have a golden. So when after a walk, we'll see them like slowly walking, trying to get into her fur, and we snag them and flush them down the toilet.
It is something how they're able to latch on to, like, your pants or to your pet without latching onto the skin yet. Just getting on, and then they hold on.
They're very opportunistic. Yeah. And that's one of the things is what are some things at home we can do while keeping your lawn manicured, and mowed. And a lot of people want their dogs to go to the bathroom in the woods or in the weeds so they don't have to see it. But I argue that that's a great place for them to pick them up. A lot of people say, oh, my pet, I think about, your little Shih Tzu or the little 2-pound Yorkie. Oh, they don't go outside. Well, they go to the bathroom. And it only takes 2 seconds for a tick to just the animal brushing up against the tick, they'll latch right on. So, but keeping your lawn manicured is a huge thing.
They're about as amazing as they are disgusting. If you are not familiar with these ticks, well, your unfed tick is just a speck. It's a tiny little thing. But once he's engorged with your animal's blood, he's huge. He's like 10 times the size he was before he started his meal. You're going to be shocked on the size of an engorged tick.
Now, when a tick does latch on and they start feeding and they start getting engorged, about how long does it take for them to get that big?
Probably like 48-ish hours or more.
Yeah.
It takes 48 hours to transfer.
On the cat. I mean, I check my cat every day now, and one day I think they're okay. Next day it's an engorged tick. Well, that's probably because I missed the tick when he was really little.
Yep.
But when they get huge, they're big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're nasty creatures there. So in our area, we are in Wyoming County, New York, and we have the deer tick that's very popular around our area, and that's the one that Dr. Sims had spoken on, stating that that's the one that carries Lyme disease and some of these other tick-borne diseases. There are a couple other different ticks in the area. How do you know if your pet got the deer tick or not versus the other ones?
Well, there's some they all look different, but when they're engorged, and if you don't have a microscope, you don't know. So I just really just tell everyone to pick them. You can always bring them into your veterinarian's office too, and we can look at them. But that's the importance too of that for disease testing that should be done every year, because there's other tick-borne diseases that other ticks can transmit. And Ehrlichia and anaplasmosis are two of the other ones. And those ones are arguably more dangerous than Lyme. I guess this is a good time to talk about what happens. So in animals, 5 to 10% of dogs that are infected with Lyme disease actually show symptoms or get sick. So it's a latent bacterial disease that kind of hangs out in the body. And the most common thing we do see if we see disease is fever, joint pain, and lethargy, or them being tired. So it almost looks like arthritis, or you wonder, like, did they get hit by a car? Like, they're just really painful in their joints. Sometimes you'll see one day they're limping on one leg, the next day they're limping on the other, holding their head down low, maybe not eating. And that is usually eliminated with a course of an antibiotic called doxycycline, which is actually the same thing they put humans on, for about a month. But it's rare, but very possible that they can then get kidney failure, so glomerular disease. And so if your dog tests positive for Lyme disease, so every time we have a dog in for their annual wellness, we suggest a 4-disease test to test for heartworm disease, and then anaplasmosis, ehrlichia, and Lyme. And if they're positive but aren't showing any symptoms, we just discuss what can happen, making sure they're on preventative so that they can't, a tick can't bite them and infect another animal. Or also, I always say, you have ticks in your area that are carrying Lyme disease, so you can get infected. So just be cautious. But then we also will check their urine for protein. And we do that once or twice a year because protein loss through the urine is an indication of kidney disease. And how dogs get kidney disease with Lyme's is that their body is fighting off this bacteria and producing antibodies. And the antibody complexes actually get stuck and clogged up in the kidneys, and then they kill the kidney tissue. So we don't really see heart disease in dogs with Lyme's disease. But commonly it's lameness, limping. If we have a dog that comes in the clinic and, oh yeah, you don't like Lyme disease either, huh? Okay. The dog is, not feeling well, kind of seems painful and has a fever. We almost always test for Lyme disease, because we see it so often. And then there's a vaccine for it too. There's a couple different vaccines. The most common vaccine I think out there is the one that actually deactivates the protein in the tick's mouth. So if, say, they bite a dog that is vaccinated and the tick has Lyme disease, they take in that blood, and hopefully they're on preventive, so it jumps off. But they also got these OSP-A proteins, or an anti-OSP-A, and it paralyzes the protein in the tick's mouth so it can't exit the body.
Interesting.
So not only are you helping your own dog, you are helping every other dog that might get that might get bit by that tick,
including us.
Yeah. So that is something that I feel like the vaccine is you are on the neighborhood watch, right? You're helping out your neighbors and your other dogs in your household and things like that. And then there's other vaccines, and some have both the OSP-A and then OSP-C, but anti-proteins. There's one that protects the body. If it does get into their body, the Lyme disease, the body knows how to fight it and almost protect it from the body reacting to it. So instead of it fighting that protein, it almost camouflages it so the body doesn't see it as negative, because that's what the clinical signs are from the body reacting to the protein, causing inflammation. So yeah, it's very interesting the way that vaccine is, those vaccines are made compared to a flu vaccine or something.
That's an interesting point, because I've often wondered too when it comes to the testing, because they use the Flex for SNAP test, the 4DX test that not only tests for Lyme but heartworm disease and the other tick-borne diseases. Why do we wait 6 to 8 weeks before we test it once we remove the tick?
Because it takes that long for the body to mount an immune response. So a lot of times you don't see, it's not like there's the tick that's on your dog is the one causing the disease. There are some dogs that are prone to something called tick-borne paralysis, like coonhounds, tree walker hounds, things like that, that there's something in the tick saliva that causes muscle tension and neurologic disease. But because it takes a little while. It's hard to describe. Like strep throat, right, takes 7 days or, whatever from when you were exposed to when you become sick. That's how it works. But the body has to amount enough immune factors to be able to be tested on the test. So
just as a side note, other than just being annoying and causing a lot of itching and irritation, are fleas a concern as far as born?
no, not. Yeah, you have something to say? Not in the terms of Lyme disease or anything like that. Yeah, there is like cat scratch fever that there's that song about, right? Cat scratch fever. But that is more like if you have a cat who has fleas, the flea dirt is actually fecal matter from the fleas, and the cats scratch and they get the fecal matter under their nails, and then they scratch a human, and then you get a bacterial infection. But it's nothing parasitic. Like no. And
ticks.
Some people get bit by fleas. I feel like that's when they have really bad infestations, but ticks are the more scary.
Fleas can be their own topic all on their own because, man,
They're
they are
persistent.
they are nasty too.
Enough about fleas for now. I'm starting to itch already.
We'll scratch that itch later. So, you had spoken earlier about ticks when they bite a dog, and say Lyme disease does transmit over to the dog. It's only about 5 to 10% of Lyme positive dogs actually display the symptoms. What do you do if they don't display any symptoms? Do you just
monitor? So if we have a dog that comes in test positive, my son has never been so vocal in his entire life until today. No, he's ready. We would check their urine every 6 months to 12 months to check for that protein. And then, of course, if they come up limping or something, we would kind of assess, like, okay, did your dog get hit by a car when it was young or break a leg and that's like it's limping on? Is it an old dog that's arthritic? Is it the disease that's causing? Is it that bacteria that's causing disease, or is it just the dog? So, but we would monitor for the urine protein because that's the first. That's the first indication of a kidney issue, is the loss of protein in the urine.
So as far as areas of the U.S. to be concerned about, I'm guessing it's mostly the eastern U.S.?
Yes. So because of the temperatures, and I also think the deer population. I was telling Sam before we started this podcast, I learned a really interesting fact that there is another tick that can carry Lyme disease on the West Coast. Where's its name? The Ixodes pacificus, but that actually doesn't cause disease as much because it's like our host, right, is the white-footed mouse. There's our reptiles, and reptiles don't carry Lyme disease. So the tick has the ability to carry Lyme disease, but it feeds primarily off of reptiles and birds, I think, and it doesn't.
So it is a lousy host.
Yeah. Yes, which might be so lousy if it doesn't cause disease. So
that's the good point there. That's so interesting that even a snake could get a tick on it.
Yeah,
it's just like it just blows my mind. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But so I don't know what I was doing, washing dishes or something. And I was thinking, so what are things that we could talk to people about how to protect against fleas and ticks, or ticks, right? That's what we're talking about. And of course, prevention and vaccination are the number ones and twos of how to best protect you and your family and your pets. But manicuring your lawn, mouse control, protect the possums. So there's animals that eat ticks. There's a big backyard chicken thing going on right now. Everybody's getting chickens. Well, chickens eat ticks. So
I'm keeping my chicken.
Yeah, keep your chickens. So possums, chickens, frogs, squirrels, and even ants eat ticks. So I would, don't shoot your wildlife or, anything like that. People think squirrels can be a pest, and then maybe this is another thing to make everyone get some chickens. Let them roam around your backyard, but.
And the price of eggs?
Right.
Yeah.
Killing two birds with one stone, even though these are not the birds you want to kill.
Exactly. Yes.
And then I'll even put in a little support your hunters. So deer control, deer population control is a thing. And if we have too many, deer that are coming close, eating our plants, things like that, they can drop ticks off. And, everyone's starting to buy their plants for the year and think about perennials that are deer resistant. So they're not coming close to the house. Things like that just trying to reduce.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell people not to go for walks, right? Because
it's good exercise.
Beautiful Letchworth, and all right, exercise your dog, but just be aware.
But you heard it here, folks. Be nice to your possums.
Protect the possums. I'm going to start a campaign.
Yeah.
Hashtag protect the possums.
Who cares if they're ugly? They eat ticks and they're kind of fun to watch.
And they can't get rabies.
They can't get rabies.
Isn't that crazy too? It just.
When I was a kid, I had a pet possum. I don't know if it's because we couldn't afford a dog, but everybody in the neighborhood thought I was pretty strange with my pet possum, and he was kind of fun because you'd walk toward him and his jaws would open wide and he'd hiss at you, and then you could pick him up anyway.
I think it's illegal now to do that.
Yes, I don't recommend everyone do that, but
Get a pet chicken, not a pet possum.
I was raised in the city. We didn't know.
it's a city. Yeah.
And they'll eat your trash, right?
Yeah.
So that's just so many interesting facts about these ticks and about the different animals the ticks can live on and migrate on and things like that. How each animal on this earth does have a purpose. We can't really see what the purpose of the tick is other than transmit disease.
Right.
But
yes.
That's why we have these preventative measures to take care of them. So do your dog walks. Go to Letchworth Park and your local dog park and walk them. Just be sure that you are protecting your pet at the same time. Checking them over after the walk. Getting their preventatives beforehand. Talk to your veterinarian about the Lyme disease vaccine because that might help in the long run give your pet a healthier life and you a healthier life.
Yeah.
It's a strange abstract topic. Can there be wildlife, deer out there dying of Lyme disease?
I don't know.
It's a really
I feel
strange
like
topic.
if they are a big enough host and they are carrying it, then no. You'd think that they would, right? We would see more dying deer, but I don't, especially in how prominent the area is, but I don't think so. I think that's what an opportunity, that's why they are a host. They can hold the disease or the bacteria without dying so the tick can continue its life cycle of keeping the disease around. So I think that is, and that's the same with the tick, right? Well, the tick is not a mammal, but it's not affected at all. But yeah, I think, we're talking year-round preventative. A lot of people think it's a money thing, but we see ticks year-round. There's no freezing period. You just need the grass to be exposed. So this winter was not a harsh winter at all. There are many days where the grass was exposed. The ticks were jumping. Right, hunting season, that's not between November and April and November.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes past that, right? So a lot of people say, we used to say April to November because of heartworm season, because of the killing in the belly of when it gets cold enough. But really, fleas and ticks are all year. And testing, a lot of people say, oh, they're not sick. Well, what if they had Lyme disease? And, unfortunately, I've seen some dogs have to be euthanized or pass away because of kidney, Lyme nephritis. And that's really sad because it's not preventative. So I can't get rid of the Lyme disease once it's in your dog and causing kidney disease. But we can sure as heck give medications, change diet to slow it down. And two, if you're not on preventative and your one dog has Lyme disease and your other doesn't, a tick can transmit from dog to dog. So,
Well, I have seen, when I've harvested deer, that I'm field dressing the deer, and the ticks are just jumping off the deer like crazy. And it makes you wonder, well, is this any kind of blood-borne pathogen that's passing from this deer and this venison? Am I taking home a problem?
No, you're not.
That's good to know.
No,
That's
yes.
why I asked.
Yeah, no. No.
So if you do take like the body of a deer home to do what you're going to do for the venison and meat preparation, the ticks can they still be on the deer at that point?
Yeah. So that's why I like too, or people just in the woods, or dog hunt, when you pheasant hunt or grouse hunter, with your dogs too, but just us bringing them home.
Yep, I did it. I brought them home, and I was the host. I was getting the blood sucked right out of me.
And unfortunately, there's no preventative for us. Some people. I had one gentleman tell me, he's like, "Oh yeah, I took that collar off my dog and put it around my ankle and went in the woods." And I was like, I would not suggest that, but because that's not how it works. The collar does get medication into the dog's bloodstream. It's not like a repellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's funny, whatever floats your boat.
yeah, right. But yeah, and that's the thing too. Like taking your hunt, when you go for a walk, taking your socks and maybe your pants off in the garage or something before coming inside. But
Yeah.
Would it be wise too if we can just kind of put our socks to the outside of our cuffs of our pants and protect ourselves?
The other thing is a lint roller. Take a lint roll. Keep a lint roll in your car. So if you hike or you hunt, even if you just have land that you walk, get a lint roller and lint roll yourself before coming in the house, because that tape will get those ticks.
Tick.
Yep. And then lint roll your dog. It's a great kind of hack.
Well, I think it's a great idea because I have to roll the dog hair off me anyway.
Yeah.
So I can catch the little ticks.
Yeah, some people keep, like the packing tape, but a lint roller does the job.
Great.
They have little travel size ones, so if you hike with a bag on or something, you can throw
Great
it in.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking about the medicine perspective too, when it comes for these preventatives, it's not like a one size fit all type approach too. Each pet can react differently to certain preventatives. Some preventatives, like oral version versus topical, are more effective. And cats and dogs, they don't have the same medicine. So don't put cat medicine on your dog and vice versa, because that could fatally harm them.
Yeah, but back in the day, and I say that as if I know, I'm not that old, but like the advanced ticks can kill cats, cause neurologic disease. And now they've made flea and tick products for cats, because before cats were just on flea preventive. There wasn't really, we didn't do much about cats. Not saying we didn't care about them, but the cat market is really becoming more supportive of preventing disease and things like that.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. We don't, they're not popular yet, but there is oral preventive for cats as well. A lot of people, it's just topical, but every dog is different. Every situation is different for preventative. So I think it's best to always chat with a veterinarian or a staff member at the vet clinic. I feel like we're all very educated on flea and tick prevention because we talk about it a lot. It's really important to us.
Yeah, it is, and it is a year-round thing too.
Yeah.
The prevent your pets year-round. Ticks aren't just gone just because it's the middle of December, or it's Christmas time. So just be careful.
Yeah.
And this is why we created CHOW. We're an educational program to help
learn
all of
something
us.
new. Yes.
I mean, we have people like Kendra who come and educate us, and I just learned a lot today. It's great information.
And even I learned stuff about like the reptiles and things just by kind of doing a bit more research so I could be prepared. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. I didn't know the reptiles like kill Lyme disease. They have an anti-Lyme disease in their butt. Like how, that's a really...
It just still blows my mind a snake can get a tick. It's just like, oh my gosh. I never thought about stuff like that before. We're so concerned about our companion animals or some of the wildlife that I didn't even think about reptiles or anything like that. So
Yeah.
Oh,
So, is there anything else about Lyme disease that we want to drive home to our listeners, to our members, to anybody, to for them to take away from this before we move on to the next segment of the podcast?
The thing I want to say is just don't take it lightly. This is a real problem. It's a real problem in this northeastern U.S. that we live in. I've witnessed it. I own a little farm, and I see ticks as my biggest enemy there. And I'm conscious of it all the time, and I don't take it lightly. I suggest you really monitor your home life situation. You have a tick problem whether you know it or not.
Yeah, but unless your animal uses a puppy pad in the house, they are at risk.
Yeah. So I have some statistics before I forget to talk about them that I had printed out. There is this website called Companion. It's called CAPC. I hope I'm going to say this right. I think it's Companion Animal Parasite Council, and it's a really interesting map. If anyone wants to go onto their website, they go look up certain vector-borne diseases, such as Lyme disease and things like that, and you can find a map of the United States and where it is in your area, what area has been reporting on it, what's the most predominant. New York is pretty much a dark color when you're looking at this map and where we're at. I can find my sheet here. So I just took like a little bit of a comparison back and forth of looking at a couple different years in different areas. In the United States, all of 2022, it's reported that of all the dogs that have tested for Lyme disease, 3.8% came back positive. And that might sound like a small number, but percentage-wise, but that is 424,025 cases that were positive. And some of these state colors are a deep, like a dark color that meant they were very heavily tested positive. New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It's basically the northeast part of the United States that are seeing this because that's primarily where the deer tick is residing. And that is that's all of 2022. That many positive cases. 2023 so far, this is between January and April of 2023 that we have the latest results. It's about 150,542 positive cases, still the same areas. So ticks are still in these same areas affecting us here.
Yeah, that's almost 30%.
Yeah.
Of last year's numbers.
Yeah.
Just in the first quarter.
Yeah. That's a pretty big jump there. And we're just getting started when it comes to summer and warm weather.
Right, that's some of the colder months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just January to April.
I see the dark colors were stretching down to West Virginia last year. This year now we're covering Virginia as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very dark color.
Yeah. Yes. That's a good catch there. It's very interesting. We try to go a little bit more local, and so we look at New York State. And what we have here is in 2022, just in April of 2022. So we're just highlighting 1 month of New York State. Of all the cases that were tested, there were about 633,331 total dogs tested. 51,363 of them were positive. That's an 8.1% positive rate. That's in 2022 of April. If we look at this year, April 2023, it's the same percentage. It's 8.1%. And granted, it doesn't look like there were as many tested as there were in 2022, but it's still showing you that it's just that time of the month. It's just happening, or that time of the year, I should say. We even could break this down by county, which I think is very interesting. So I definitely encourage all of our listeners to go to this website and look it up because you can find where you live and see, is your place a hotspot for Lyme disease in particular? Of all of last year, Wyoming County, so Wyoming County, New York, 2022, the whole year, there are about 1,600 total tested dogs. To be precise, 1,637 tested. Of those, 168 were positive cases. That's 10.3%. And if you want to compare those numbers from last year to this year so far, and we've only done the first quarter of 2023, there were 505 tested so far. 69 of them were positive cases. That's 13.7%.
It's a jump.
It's a jump already from just 1 year, and we're not even halfway through this year yet. So it's just something to be aware of and be mindful of, that these numbers will go down if we're on preventative care and we're taking care of our pets and we're getting them the Lyme vaccine or getting them some sort of flea and tick preventative. Their dogs can't get Lyme disease when we're doing the precautions and taking those necessary steps, and then these numbers will start going down.
Yeah, and of course we might see a jump in numbers if we have more people testing.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that might be a little bit of false, but not much. The jump between last year in Wyoming County in just this last 4 months is 30%. I mean, that's not...
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's all testing, right? But I think the more we test too, those numbers could get smaller to help things go down.
Yeah. And the more knowledge and more education that people have on, this is something I can actually prevent in my companion animal. We deem them our family members now. So trying to treat them as such is a long process, an expensive process, but in the long term, getting preventative medicine and preventative care versus having to, when it comes to the financial aspect, and they get Lyme disease and you're treating them and things cost money, if you're going to be spending it one way or another, it's going to be far more beneficial for you in the long run to prevent them than it is to treat them.
Yep. Yeah.
So moving on from there, we're going to go to the section of the podcast where we have our members ask questions for Dr. Sims in regards to the topic. So we submitted to all of our members, and if you want to be one of these people that gets to ask a question to our guest, you just have to become a member of Animal Friends. You can go to our website, animalfriendsofwyco.com, click the membership section. There are 2 ways now you could be able to become a member. There's an online form, or you could download and print the form out and mail it in. Mail it to the Wyoming County Animal Shelter, addressed to Animal Friends of Wyoming County. It's $15 a year, and you get certain benefits such as like a newsletter coming to you twice a year, and voting on our calendar cover contest. You get like first dibs added to narrow down the top 5, and this is another benefit of it, submitting your questions for our guests. So Cheryl from Perry would like to know from you, Dr. Sims. She owns Lady Jane.
Oh, yes, Lady Jane.
Anyone who knows of us at Animal Friends knows about Lady Jane's story and where she came from. She is, oh my gosh, she's
such a sweetheart, and they are wonderful people.
They are.
Yes.
Lady Jane's been very blessed with the home that she's got now. She wants to know, is there such a thing as a ghost Lyme disease diagnosis? The reason she says that is because her blood work indicates that she may have been exposed to Lyme disease, but she keeps testing negative. Is there traits of Lyme?
They can actually test positive, and then the body can resolve it and test negative. And there's further testing you can do, something called the C6 quantitative test, which is additional blood work, and that tests like the actual antibody level with certain proteins. There's some controversy about it, but so what we do is like a bedside test. So you're either positive or you're not. It doesn't tell you how positive you are, and there is such thing as how positive. So are you positive because you're recently infected? The dog? Is it positive because they were infected 3 years ago? Is it because of a we just gave the vaccine last week. So that can kind of help tell what, where their status is. I'm not really quite sure, how her blood work otherwise could tell us if her test was negative. And if she had it previously, usually it's only with an active positive infection. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't think about that other stuff before too. The blood work you could do, and that is it safe to give the Lyme vaccine if a dog is Lyme positive? Yes,
arguably. There's some veterinarians that feel giving the vaccine on a positive dog can help their body fight it off, in a quicker or reduce the flare up of a joint, illness, things like that. But yes, yep, we would definitely vaccinate.
That's good. It's good to know. So we've talked a little bit about the answer to this next question, but in case we missed anything or any specifics, Beth from Pavilion wants to know, how do dogs get Lyme disease? It's kind of straightforward. We feel that at this point that we've talked about, they are carried on like a tick or a rodent of some kind.
Yep. So an infected tick has to bite the dog, the deer, the human, whatever. Yep. And the tick picks up infection from another host, like the white-footed mouse, a deer, a dog. Yep.
I thought that was a great point that you brought up. Why is it called Lyme disease? And that's because of Lyme, Massachusetts.
Lyme, Connecticut. Yep.
Lyme, Connecticut. And it was a location thing. It had nothing to do with Lyme itself.
Yeah. I believe in the 1980s they had this insane outburst or outbreak of all these dogs getting really sick. And I think there was a really huge tick population there for some reason. I haven't really looked into it, but that was... Yeah, and that was Lyme, Connecticut.
That's an interesting thing to look into, too, because we know that Lyme disease affects both dogs and humans. And so it's...
Right. Was it the people,
Do we
too?
know if it was the people first or was the dogs first, and it spread from there?
Yeah.
That's interesting to... It would make sense if it was dogs first because of how often they get it compared to how often we get it, but yeah.
Yep.
So Sally from Silver Springs, New York wants to know, and I think we touched upon this a little bit, do deer get Lyme disease? I think...
And that's what I don't know. I don't think they get sick from it. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, because they're
The
definitely the
DEC might know.
host.
Yes.
So they can, or well,
I
the
feel like if they
carriers.
died from it, you wouldn't see as much of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because then the ticks wouldn't have anything to feed off of.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I like that we talked about that because back to your point, Tom, on when we bring a deer home and the venison, are we having to worry about some of these diseases like that going through it? We don't, thankfully.
Yeah.
You know.
Just don't eat raw meat in general.
Also makes you wonder how long have ticks been around, because we were talking about from what, the 1980s or 18?
19, I think it's the 1980s.
They could have been around here since the Pilgrims were here. We have no idea.
I'm sure they were.
All right, so my mom, actually, and Officer Justa Goodell, she wants to know other popular animals that can carry, transmit, and carry and transfer ticks and Lyme disease type things. Other than we touched upon
Cats,
dogs,
probably fox, coyote, raccoons.
Yeah. There's basically any mammal.
I would think, yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. And it's interesting about the reptiles that they can't get Lyme disease.
Yeah, they have a anti-Borrelia something in their body that deactivates it.
In regards to cats, because we use the 4DX plus tests for dogs to test for Lyme disease and things like that. Do cats get a similar test, or is there a way to test it in cats?
No, I think there's probably a way to test it in cats, but it doesn't affect them. So
Not as much as it will affect dogs.
yeah, and I think that I really think that cats are just like they don't carry the Lyme disease for ticks to get. They just keep the ticks alive by supplying them with a blood meal if they're not on preventative. So I don't think you see Lyme disease in cats. Like if you tested every cat, I don't know if you could test for Lyme disease. I'm sure you could, but it's not. There's probably something with them that we don't.
Yeah, that's interesting how Lyme disease affects each one of these different animals, cats versus dogs versus humans, where it can get very deadly in humans, and it can for dogs,
We don't
too,
ever test cats for any tick-borne disease on a routine basis. Yeah.
Yeah, so just keep your cat on that preventative, man. All right, so do we have anything coming up with Animal Friends that you could think of, Tom? We have a couple events coming up this summer. We're going to be at the Wyoming County Fair in Pike, New York. By the time this podcast episode airs, we would have already done our Painting for Paws event, which is going to be really fun. So definitely check it out on our website for the next time we have something like that going around.
I'm not quite sure if we're involved with the deal in Warsaw. They're going to do something in the park. wasn't it?
Yep, there's that. I think last thing I heard about that is we're working out some details of doing an event and possibly in Warsaw. I know we like to do Santa Paws at the Tractor Supplies in Warsaw and an arcade. So,
And how about Apple-Umpkin? Were we talking about
yep,
putting a
our
table
group
up at
is trying to do
Apple-Umpkin?
that.
I
Yeah.
believe I was going to do a demonstration there on how to walk your dog in the formal walk using the red leash. It's a great little education. I hope to see you all there.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's really cool when you come to some of our events, you get some education on top of helping us fundraise and things like that for the dogs at the animal shelter and for this project in particular. So this has been a blast. This is really cool. Dr. Sims, do you have a message for our audience as we close out the podcast today?
Just get everyone on preventative, vaccinate if you can, and check yourself for ticks.
Thank you, Doctor, for the education today.
Yeah,
You
it
were
was
great.
great.
Yes.
Great chatting with everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. If anyone needs any references to some of the things we talked about, they'll be posted on our website, animalfriendsofwyco.com, under the CHOW Project section. And this is definitely something we all should keep in mind with our companion animals. Thank you, Dr. Sims, for being our special guest today.
Thank
It's
you.
been a blast. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please join us next time on the CHOW Podcast. Check us out on Rumble and YouTube and anywhere you get your social media. And we will see you and talk to you next time. Goodbye. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CHOW Podcast, hosted by Animal Friends of Wyoming County. To learn more about us, visit our website at www.animalfriendsofwyco.com. And if you're interested in adopting a dog, please call the Wyoming County Animal Shelter at 585-786-8938. This has been a production of Knox Luna Films, LLC.